So, hi and welcome to cloudwords.net. We are here with another exciting episode, and today with me is Ian McEwan from Egnyte. He's the vice president for Europe, Asia, and Africa, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Perfect. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Egnyte online file storage. Egnyte is a file storage solution for businesses and enterprises, and we're going to see why this solution is special and why it could be something. Head dive a little bit into the general. How is it going to develop? What are our or Ian's projections into the future, and we hope we have an interesting discussion. And if you have any questions for Ian or in general about the cloud, you can just leave comments in the comment section below this video or in the comment section on cloudwords.net. So Ian, hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thanks very much for the time today.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here and for your time. So you've been working in a lot of cloud companies. I could see in the last 10 years that you've listed on your LinkedIn profile a bit. So when was actually the first time the cloud became something important, something special, or something that you wanted to work in?
Yeah, probably it started around about 2005, 2006. Obviously, with the dot-com era, a lot of organizations were moving away from traditional prem solutions and looking at how to leverage a cloud-based platform. So I started to see movement of that, particularly with within the space that I was in within service management. One of the companies that came to the forefront at that time, back in 2005, was a company called ServiceNow, probably one of the most successful cloud-based service management companies that's been around over the last sort of 6 to 12 years, or 6 to 8 years. So I don't think I sort of decided that I was just going to drop into a cloud-based platform. I think the evolution of services to clients was the main driver for that. And what I was finding through my career, that more and more customers were looking to move towards cloud-based solutions, whether that be from a CRM perspective, like with the likes of Salesforce, or from other vendors. So that's predominantly where I started to move into the cloud. Found it really interesting. Started with some other guys, the Cloud Industry Forum from within the UK, really looking at trying to get some best practices into the industry, particularly around customer requirements. And as I say, the last sort of 8 years has been an interesting transition and journey for me, as I've seen more and more customers moving towards cloud-based solutions, but not necessarily wanting to move completely to a solution that would be cloud only, and hence why.
So, what is the most predominant? What is the most predominant predominant way or change you witness from companies moving from on-premise to the cloud? So, what is the most common services that companies require or want to use or want to improve upon with their business?
Yeah, I think the services that most companies are looking to try and improve are really around the lines of business. So any set of solutions that are going to empower the end user to support either themselves or their customers better. So, traditionally around better collaboration, better service management, better customer relationships. I've seen a move towards that. And traditionally, what I've seen is it's been driven by the lines of business nowadays. It used to be much more around IT delivering certain key services and pushing it out. Now it's more around business demanding what they need to be aggressive and to be competitive. And over the last 18 months, 24 months, you've probably seen the development of what was now being known as grey IT, where the business is not necessarily waiting for IT to catch up and are moving towards implementing their own solutions. So I think there's a lot of different areas that clients are looking to use for the cloud, and I think it's a key part of an overall strategy, but I don't think it's going to get to the point, particularly in the enterprise, where it's going to be the only strategy. I think it's going to be a hybrid for a lot of the bigger enterprise customers.
What is the most exciting part of the cloud industry for you right now?
I think the most exciting place is really around this whole user adoption of collaboration. So when you look at the electronic file sync and share space, it's really becoming a hot ticket for customers, not just in the enterprise, but also in the consumer-led business. Some of these areas that necessarily wouldn't have been used in business are now starting to force companies into looking at how they collaborate and share documents and files. So we saw that with the Box IPO just less than 2 weeks ago. A very successful launch, and I think that's brought a lot more focus and attention to our space. So I'd say at the moment it's a really exciting area. I joined Egnyte about 6 months ago, and in that last 6 months we've seen huge growth across our EMEA operations. We've now got a footprint across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. We've got a lot of people that have now been hired, and I'm not necessarily seeing it coming from just traditional client base. I mean, we've got clients as far as Middle East, Africa, Sub-Sahara, into parts of the Mediterranean. So traditionally, yes, some of the core countries like the UK.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What are those kinds of clients that are actually in Africa? What are those companies? So it's really hard for me to imagine like what kind of companies in Africa are actually now requiring those services. Maybe you could expand a little bit on that, because this is something that maybe is not that well known, because everybody talks about companies in the U.S. and in Europe. But maybe you could talk a little about the African companies that are actually requiring those services right now.
For sure, and I think if we look at the African side of it, but elaborate that out into one of the verticals where we're seeing quite a bit of interest, and that's really around construction and engineering, where they have a huge amount of data that needs to be transferred from headquarters to remote sites or plants or oil rigs, and they're needing to utilize bandwidth a lot better. So at the present moment in time, some of our clients in those sectors are predominantly in construction and oil and gas, where they want to collaborate but want to be able to have this hybrid where data can be residing in the cloud but also on the local site and at HQ. So it's an interesting
this is a very Go ahead.
So it's an interesting paradigm, because what we are absolutely seeing is clients now finding a way to still collaborate, but utilizing the constraints of bandwidth. Today's world of 3G, 4G, bring your device to work means that every application inside a company is fighting for bandwidth. And if we're in a position where we can alleviate some of that, but still have control from an IT perspective, let the end users have the capability to collaborate and share, but have IT have the control from a security and a reporting perspective is of real interest. And we're finding quite a bit of interest coming from those sectors.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to have a look at more into the hybrid approach when we talk a little bit about the product portfolio that Egnyte offers. For now, I just wanted to ask you maybe a personal question: why you actually changed to Egnyte, switched your position to. You worked at Gigamon, I think this was your position at
That's correct.
or what you figured in LinkedIn. I don't know if you can talk about why you made the switch.
Yeah, I think it's an easy answer for me. What I tend to traditionally do is help startup companies grow and expand across the European operations. So, when I started at Gigamon, we had 2 employees, and our European offices were in a barn on a farm outside Reading, and we took that from um, 2 employees up to about 35 employees, and helped set up the infrastructure around processes, procedures, and the channel to help the European operation meet the goals that are needed by any company to potentially have a successful launch, and that's to be 30% of the worldwide revenue. So we went public at Gigamon in June 2013, and I was looking then for my next opportunity from about January of last year, and I got talking with the board at Egnyte, and felt that they had a very strong proposition, and it fitted well to my skills about growing and developing a European operation. So hence how I ended up here in August of last year.
So can you talk a little about the exact measures or the exact process you use in order to help like cloud startups to expand and to grow? Because this is something I find very, very interesting, and I like to really pick executive minds a little bit on how they actually execute their strategies and how they think and how other from your view on the market.
Yeah, I think it's fundamentally a very simple recipe for success for any company, and that's putting the customer first, and being able to have account managers, professional services, customer success managers, support engineers, all locally residing inside the region. Egnyte was been doing quite a bit of business in Europe prior to myself coming on board or setting up the infrastructure, but you're always then seen as a US, North American company with no real infrastructure. Now today inside Egnyte we have 6 languages. We have all the key sectors covered, from account management through pre-sales, professional services, support, customer service management. And I think that's the key, is putting the customer first. One thing that is absolutely apparent with any software as a service, application as a service, infrastructure as a service, is it's about achieving customer success and having a customer for life. Because today, like a lot of other industries, customers can jump on and jump off a service very easily. So trying to keep customer loyalty and customer retention is about having local people on the ground, and that seems to be my mantra. That's what I've done in a couple of companies, and it seems to work.
And that is your main task right now. So this is what you're focused on, keeping track of customer satisfaction and customer retention.
Well, yeah, that's part of it. I mean, we have a bigger organization globally that look at the customer satisfaction. Predominantly, my role across EMEA is to grow new customer acquisition, and we're finding, particularly in the enterprise, a lot of interest on our solution, because we offer this hybrid. We're not just a true cloud-only solution, and it plays very well into the enterprise customer base, because they're also very conscious and concerned about putting sensitive data just up into the cloud, particularly with the new, well, it's not new, it's been around for a while, but it's coming into play, the new European directive around data storage in the cloud.
Yeah. So you've already talked a little about the hybrid approach that Egnyte is actually pushing very actively into the market, or at least advertising very actively, because this seems to be something that companies do require, or cloud storage. They want to use both on-premise storage as well as the cloud. So maybe you could talk a little about what Egnyte is offering, and maybe draw the line a little bit between where what is the advantage for, let's say, a smaller business with 2 to 5 employees, and where does the enterprise start with maybe, I don't know where you define enterprise exactly, but where does Egnyte come into place for enterprises that with 50 or 100 employees? So maybe you could differentiate a little bit. Where are the benefits and maybe drawbacks, or where are the challenges basically that Egnyte has?
Yeah, I think the first thing we've got to look at is our overall solution is readily available to any size of customer, whether that be 3 to 4 employees or 100,000 employees. The uniqueness to our solution is how we come to market, and we work with those customers in being able to put together a solution that is manageable from their side. So if it's a small company, they may look at just cloud only and being able to collaborate with our tools, with everything in the cloud. As you get into sort of the SMB and mid-market, there may be a little bit more IT infrastructure, there may be a little bit more sensitive files that they want to share, and we're able then to work in a little bit more of a collaborative approach with having desktop sync, so that you're constantly getting access to your files, whether or not you've got access to the internet, and it's synchronizing back with the main system, right up to the enterprise.
And this works for like 1,000 users, if the desktop sync. So this is like scalable to 1,000 or 2,000 users or something.
Yeah, we've got some fairly large customers that are using the desktop sync and storage sync from a global operation. I mean, from my perspective, what we're trying to do with our customer base and our prospective new customers is say to them, look, we'll work with you whatever is the easiest way for you to deploy. So if it's cloud only, we can work with you on a cloud only solution. If it's a hybrid, we can work with you on that. But the interesting thing is, what we do find is, fundamentally, regardless of security and the issues and companies have around their concerns of that, the user adoption of any solution is around ease of use and being able to work with predominantly what people are using today, and that means being able to access my files on any device, anywhere, in any format. So, you know, if I am...
and this is something you support like for the small business as well as for the enterprise, the overall, the everywhere access, basically. So
absolutely.
Or is it a special feature that the enterprise needs to buy, or...
No. It's available. I mean, the key thing is it's about having a solution that is fit for purpose today and tomorrow. And regardless of the size of organization, you've got to be able to be interruptible with the other tools, whether it be a customer using Google Docs, whether it be a customer using Microsoft, whether it be a customer that's using maybe other technologies like Salesforce or DocuSign or whatever. It's about having those integrated in a way that makes sense to the line of business. IT, it's about having a single pane of glass and having a view and control, but for the line of business, it's being able to have a flexible solution that's interruptible and easy to use.
How would be like the onboarding process? Let's say I'm a small business owner. I have maybe 5 employees. I have a server at my office. I have like a NAS box with, I don't know, 2 terabytes of storage where I have important documents, maybe movie files, if I'm or whatever. So what would be like the, how would that work, and how can you assure that all that data, well, supposedly I want to add all my files into the cloud. How can you assure that this is going to be like a smooth process, especially with enormous amounts of files? Well, 2 terabytes is not an enormous amount, but especially if that, what would be the onboarding process like?
Well, I think there's 2 onboarding processes. I mean, there is the complete greenfield site client that has not looked at any solution previously and is wanting to deploy it. We, from a professional services perspective, would work with them listen to their business cases, and recommend best practices of how to deploy. Now, in reality, that's a small amount of clientele that are looking at that. Most of the clients are maybe on second generation file sync and share solutions, and not only are they looking to find a way to deploy Egnyte into their organization, they've also got to find a way to smoothly migrate their existing data and file structures and permissions into the new solution with minimum impact to the user. Again, it comes back to if we don't have user adoption, then the whole project from IT and from us as a vendor fails. So we work in parallel with lines of business around the business cases that they're looking to achieve. And we work with IT about what is the quickest and easiest way to migrate across from one solution to the other. We have a.
But this is obviously not something you do for every. Sorry.
Yeah.
This is obviously not something you do for like every customer, right? So I mean, if like somebody signs up, so the process would be, I know I have some data. I'm not very technical savvy, let's say, but I want to bring all my files into the cloud, and I want to use the fancy sharing solutions you guys offer. Just sign up for your services online, and there are different plans that I can choose from, basically. And now, how long would this take? Because I'm thinking I want to move my files as fast as possible to the cloud, but this is as a consumer or as a business for implementing that task. This seems like a tedious process because I need to learn a new system, I need to transfer my files. So how do you guarantee that both small businesses and enterprises are both successfully managed by Egnyte?
Yeah, and you're right. The smaller businesses are going to have a lot less professional services touch. In a lot of instances, they are doing it themselves. So what we find and what we've done inside the solution is we have a very in-depth application store, so they can go down and download the applications or the integrations to those applications they're working, log in with their credentials, and the two systems will start to communicate. When it comes to the other parts, there is a significant self-help capability, and at any part of it, they can go on and look at little vignette videos that will show them how to do things. They can download the documentation, and in the solution, when a client logs in for the very first time, there's a walkthrough icon that they can click on, and it will walk them through how to upload, how to download, how to share files, how to put permissions onto the system. So it's a fairly intuitive interface, whether you're going through the web or whether you're going through a mobile device. But the adoption of that is very key, because what we find is very quickly after a customer purchases initial requirements, he's coming back for secondaries. He's either coming back for additional licenses or he's coming back for additional integrations, and that's pretty much the way we find it. But you're absolutely right that the type of customers' requirements between the small home office, the SMB, to mid-market, to enterprise is a completely different. And our professional services and our partner community tend to get a lot more heavily involved in the upper end of the integrations around the enterprise, where there's a lot more users and there's a lot more integration to be dealt with.
And I imagine those margins are quite significantly differently. So if you work with an enterprise customer, I mean, probably Egnyte makes a little more money, but of course you have more management overhead. So what kind of customer does Egnyte want, so to speak? So where do you see yourself, or where does Egnyte see itself maybe in the next couple of years? What kinds of clients are you focusing on? Are you focusing on the enterprise, or do you say, hey, we also want small businesses as well as large businesses? Because I think this is an interesting development. I mean, a couple of years or a couple of months ago, I think Mozy, an online backup service, just all their consumer backup services, because they say, hey, there's no margin in it anymore. So, and they move completely to, or not completely, but they focus on business backup and enterprise backup. So, what is your move in this regard?
Well, I think the move is a fairly simple, straightforward one. We want to offer our service to customers who get value from it, whether that be a 2 or 3 user system or 100,000 users. We're very unique compared with the likes of Box or Dropbox. We don't have a consumer-only solution, which is what I will call free. All right? So all of our customers are subscribing and paying for the solution, and that fundamentally is a key differentiator. The second thing that we're finding is we are very strong in the upper enterprise, and it probably wasn't an area that we would have thought to have gone after and target, because there's a lot of big blue chip companies that are in that space. But when the co-founders looked at setting up this hybrid environment for our clients, and also putting, and again, a key differentiator compared with Box and Dropbox, we've got European data centers in Amsterdam, and that hybrid and data center in Europe means it's much more of an interesting offering to the upper enterprise clients who are concerned about the European directive, concerned about the 3% fine on turnover in the event of some issues around data breaches. So we traditionally came with a solution that was built for the enterprise and can be adapted and used in the SMB. And from a spread, we've got a very good mix of clients from very well-known enterprise customers right down to small organizations with 2 or 3 vendors. So, we're not trying to not separate the market. What we have done is, from a sales perspective, is really put a clear focus on it. So we have SMB and mid-market sales account managers, and we have the enterprise account managers. Because again, back to what we talked about earlier on, there are some key differentiators on how we would position the solution around interoperable and open architecture. So we're going after both, and we really want to have clients seeing the value of our solution, and that is one of the reasons why we fundamentally do not give a solution away for free.
So, okay, let's talk a little about the key differentiator. I think we have touched upon the hybrid approach, but maybe you can dive a little bit deeper into what makes Egnyte unique, and particularly how Egnyte differentiates itself from main competitors such as or Dropbox with their business solution.
Yeah, I think the key differentiators of our solution, we did touch on them earlier on. Well, basically, the first one is the hybrid approach. So we're turning around to clients and we're saying to them, look, we don't care where your data resides, whether it be behind your firewall, in the cloud, or a combination of the two. That's one of the key differentiators. The second differentiator is our open architecture. We're not turning around like some of the other vendors and saying, you've got to move everything to the cloud. We're saying, look, you can use our solution, and whether you're on a storage of vendor X or vendor Y, we can integrate with it. Whether you're using Salesforce, we can integrate with it. So our open architecture is a key differentiator as well. Not only from an IT perspective, so it's easier to manage and maintain, but from an operational perspective, the lines of business have got integrations that are working in a way that makes sense. The third and another most important point is the security element. I mean, we can't get anywhere today around the security and the elements of breaching and leaking of security data. You saw what Snowden came out and said. You've seen what happened with the Sony hack. Customers are very, very sensitive about their data, and from a perspective that the traditional firewall that protected company data and IP, well, that no longer just exists on the outside. It's not global because you're working with customers and partners and employees 24/7 by whatever means they're going to access. So security is not just about identifying if someone is going to have a breach. It's about putting things in place to ensure that you've got the collaboration, the permissions, and the views that make sure the individuals have the appropriate level of protection. But from a security perspective, HR can run multiple reports on documents, where they're being sent, who's opening them, which IP addresses, and so on. So security is a key part without putting such a burden on the lines of business that it pushes those users back underground to go into grey IT. And the fourth and important one is the adaptive. Really being able to look at the overall solution and from an IT and from a business perspective, get the analyticals back to be able to see how well this solution is being adopted and what can be learned from it, whether or not they need more storage, whether or not they're moving away from cloud storage to more on-prem. And I think this is going to be the shift that's going to happen between on-prem storage and the cloud. I don't think it's ever going to be all 100% in the cloud, but there is going to always be a shift between the two. And some companies may move more towards the cloud, and some companies may move back from the cloud. And that solution has to be adaptable to that.
Yeah, just hold on for a second. I wanted to dive a little deeper into the security aspect because I mean everybody is offering great security, so this is what they advertise on their website. The Box does it. Dropbox says it has top-notch security and secured servers and whatnot. So maybe you could just pinpoint a little more exact. Really have my data that I upload as a small business to your servers if I choose the cloud option. What do you do to protect my data from theft or from other people that might want to spy at it, including the NSA? So what can you do, or what are you actually now doing to protect data?
Well, you know, there's lots of different ways that you can look at breaches. You know, we're only one part of that that jigsaw. If you take our sort of key differentiators around the hybrid, you know, there's a large percentage of confidential data that the client will want to keep inside the firewall, but still have access to the users being able to get into that. Now, notwithstanding that, when we talk about data in the cloud, every single software vendor that offers as a service cloud-based will always have the safe harbor that they will talk to clients about and share with them about how secure the data is from a privacy perspective. That's fine if your data is residing inside Europe. If you take, for instance, where some of the vendors' data centers are in North America, your safe harbor is then superseded by the Patriot Act. And back to what you were talking about, you know, NSA or the capability to go in without really asking the customer, just asking the vendor for access to the data. I think, again, from our perspective, having the insight to set up the European data center a while back, that gives our customers the choice. We have European customers who want to use a hybrid solution but do not want any of their customer data or any of their data going outside the EU. So there are things that we're doing that help give customers a level of security. I mean, fundamentally, it's one of the areas our chief security officer is constantly looking at, because as we get smarter with our technology and other vendors get smarter, the hackers get even smarter. So they are continually looking at ways to breach it. So, you know, that is one of the reasons why customers pick Egnyte, because they can turn around if they really got sensitive data that they do not want to reside in the cloud. then they can keep it behind the corporate firewalls and still let people have the access to it. And the permissions that are associated to being able to give people the access to those files can also be revoked very simply from an Egnyte solution, whether that be removing the permissions or actually physically removing the data or revoking access to the mobile device, so they've no longer got access to get to that data.
So I was a little bit encryption issue, because I mean there are various encryption standards and mechanisms. Most providers obviously have an SSL and TLS encryption during transit, and then again on their servers. But obviously now, as security is getting more and more important, people require, or businesses require, local encryption for their files before they're sent to the cloud. And I believe Egnyte does not have local encryption in place right now. Are you thinking of implementing that in future somehow, or this is require encrypt files before they upload them to the servers?
I think it's an area that every vendor's looking to improve on. Whether it be just sending, rich text format through email or attachments. There's a fundamental partnership that needs to happen between a vendor and a customer to ensure that the security element of their transit of the data is there. It's an area that Egnyte takes really seriously, and it's an area that we continually look to improve. And one of the ways that we're looking to improve on that also is through the likes of our customer advisory council. Some of our larger customers who are giving us input to be able to look at how we could better deliver our service, but not only working with them, also working with other technology partners in the space to ensure that we're constantly keeping up to date with their releases and our releases, so that they're in sync. Because sometimes you could have a window of opportunity for potential hacking if the vendors aren't working together. So it's a collaborative approach, and we take the security.
So you're obviously talking about a collaborative approach, but generally, I don't trust my cloud storage service, or I don't trust anybody with my files. So why would I trust Egnyte? So I want to have something some service that ensures that my files are secure. And obviously, you're talking about like a mutual trust or a mutual relation. But I mean, for example, I'm based in Germany. And I'm German, and many Germans are, as you might know if you've worked with companies in Germany, we're very, very security concerned and privacy concerned. So what do you tell them? What do you tell them if they say, "Hey, I want my files absolutely secure"? How can I do that? But I want to use the cloud also.
Well, I think that's the key thing when you look at certain customers, particularly in some parts of the EU, that they're saying, look, we really would like data centers in our country, or we'd like to really use our IT infrastructure. If it's down to a point, and I'll separate the two out for the moment, if it's down to a point where an enterprise customer is looking at a hybrid solution, we would be managing the application layer, while they potentially could be managing the object layer, and we could work with that. If it's a smaller customer that's saying, look, I want to use a cloud-based only solution, but I've got concerns about security of that offering. I mean, yes, our encryption is a key part of that, but also we've got to look at other elements of security from an end user's perspective. I mean, a lot of the data leaks that happen don't happen through transit of the data through the cloud. A lot of it's happening through USB sticks or laptops being left in some areas. What we're trying to also do with our solutions is say, in the event that there is an element of data that has been lost for whatever reason, whether that be via a laptop or an iPhone or an Android being misplaced, that we're able to revoke permissions to that and even wipe the data off those local devices. Now, when it comes to cloud-only solutions, that's probably the key concern a lot of vendors have coming from their customers is how can you secure, how can you...
Basically, permission control, you're saying.
Yeah.
So the key issue is permission control. It's less encryption of the files before they leave the computer. It's more encryption control for the businesses that it can revoke access to some folders or files. And as I believe, that is something that Egnyte is specialized in.
Yeah, and I think we look at it and say, right, we can send out files to users that are known inside the system. We can send them out to third parties with password control sent separately. We can send out restrictions that say that after a certain period of time or X amount of downloads, then the permissions are revoked. But it's an area that a lot of customers have a lot of concern about. But again, it comes back to this issue where, from an IT perspective, when you start to really suppress the control element, the lines of business then don't see a solution that is flexible enough, and it pushes them underground again into grey IT. What we try to do from an Egnyte perspective is meet the needs of the business with having a very flexible and open solution, but given IT the capabilities to have that control. And that control can be as tight as a company wants, or be as flexible as it wants. So this comes back to what I was saying earlier on. It's about this partnership. We can absolutely work with clients to ensure that the transfer of their data is encrypted and is secure, but we've got to also ensure that there's an element of education in the client about permission setting, about who sees files and how they get moved around the organization.
Yeah. Okay. So as we're moving towards the end of this interview, I just want to have like a brief lookout into the cloud and in future. So where do you see in your daily work? Where do you see is the overall development going in general with business cloud storage or enterprise cloud storage?
Well, I think you've got a couple of key paradigms that are happening currently. So, everywhere around the globe, you've now got at least 4G active. So everybody's got access to be able to transfer and move files around. The other key thing is, you see this a lot. A lot of companies talking, and from when I was at Gigamon, we talked a lot about managing big data. We're no longer talking about 10 gig or 40 gig networks. We're talking 100 gig plus networks. So there's a lot more information flow that's happening. And the cloud is going to play a very, very key part of that. Very much so, again, and probably the third most important one is there is more of a tech-savvy workforce today who are using more around social media applications and the cloud to be able to do their day-to-day work. So with all of those three things coming together, I do see that cloud-based solutions are going to become very, very important to organizations today. And with Egnyte, one of the things that we do is we look at this and we say, this is an enterprise-ready solution that is available to all. So even though when we deploy, this is an enterprise solution, every single user gets their own personal space. And they're able to use that to collaborate and share maybe pictures with aunts and uncles or family members, but you've got this element of collaboration for the business and collaboration for the consumer. So I think that's going to continue down the lines, not only inside file storage, but in many different ways that companies are coming to present and render their solutions to the consumer. And at the end of the day, what we look to try and do is look after the customer first, whether that be the internal customer, that the company is looking to try and be more effective at their job, or the external customer that they're trying to work with and collaborate. So, the cloud's here to stay, but it's not going to be the only component. And I think you'll probably find as we evolve, there's going to be more and more vendors that are going to be taking our lead and going with a hybrid solution to the market.
Do you agree with the notion that the cloud or storage prices in the cloud are going to tend towards zero, and that there's little money to be made with consumer cloud storage or consumer cloud solutions, and instead more and more companies will focus on the enterprise?
Well, I think you've seen a few things last year, which has really driven the price of cloud storage really down to a minimal fee. What we do at Egnyte and what we're looking to be able to continue to offer is, we don't really care where you store your data. That can be in Amazon, it could be in Google, it could be on your on-prem solution. The most important thing for us is making sure that the business users have the tools to be able to collaborate and work in an effective way. So, from my perspective, I do think the price of storage is going to continue to drop. It's not going to be an area where vendors are going to be making money, but what it will be is a catalyst to then put on top services like Egnyte to be able to offer the customer the opportunity to use any service anywhere. So what I mean by that is, back to this data, we don't care if it's on Google Drive, we don't care if it's on Amazon, we don't care if it's in your own organization. We want to give the employee the capability to use our tools to be able to be more effective and more efficient in their day-to-day job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ian, thank you very much for insights in this interview. It was really interesting to get to know, to look a little bit behind the curtain of how Egnyte is working and how the cloud industry in general is working. And if you would like to sign up for Egnyte, we have a download link below this video, and also we have an in-depth comparison of Egnyte versus Box. Both are, as we have heard, major contenders in the field for small business about that, and I really hope that this interview, if you are on the verge of deciding which company you can choose for your business, has helped you a little bit move the needle. We're also going to have like an interview with a Box representative so that you can have an in-depth comparison and really then make your decision that is best for your business. So, Ian, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for your time.